right, well, hi everybody. I am Scott Howard with Playback Now. Myself and my coworker Doug Martin here are going to be helping and running the Zoom meetings, the recordings, and the live stream presentations on site and virtually for NARST this year. So we've got a few things to discuss, how all of this is going to run. But first question, I'd like to know who are our NARST volunteers? Feel free to just say hello, shoot a message here in the chat, even give a wave on camera, but just want to see how many volunteers we've got here with us.
Might depend upon the volunteer. So if you're a presider, that would be a volunteer. See, we have some people waiting.
There we go. That's the important word. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Nice to see all of you. Okay. And then I am guessing most of our others are presenters. If you are a presenter, just give a little wave or say hello. Awesome. Nice to see all of you. Good to put kind of name to face a little bit because we'll all be working together. So better to be familiar. All right. And I see those hands raised, those thumbs up, and those waves. Excellent. Thank you, y'all. Okay. So a few things as we get started. So I sent out a email that kind of breaks down our whole process about almost like a month ago or so. So if everyone received that, you should have at least a little bit of information before coming into this. But I'm going to go through that while we're here just to kind of talk through this whole process. So we've got two different formats this year. We've got live streaming on Playback Now's platform, which you can find at playbacknarst.com, and I will share that here so you guys can take a look at the platform and where things are going to be streaming if they are live streamed. Here we are. Okay, and then next we are going to be connecting virtual and in-person presenters over Zoom with in-person attendees as well. That is really where our volunteers are going to come in, though we will be hoping to utilize our volunteers during the live stream as well. So for either format, the presenter will join the Zoom meeting through a provided link 15 minutes before their scheduled presentation time. Before this meeting, we were discussing how those links would be sent to you, whether individualized or on a large kind of Google form that you guys can find your presentation and then click the link. I think we're going with the latter, but I don't want to speak for exactly how we're going to do it, but it shouldn't be difficult to find your link. We'll make sure it gets to you. Yes, Lisa.
Yes, I can help to answer that. So thanks so much, Scott. So we have a list of all the rooms that you are scheduled in. So even though you are on Zoom, you're still Zooming into a room on site. So your presentation will be linked to your room. So that's how you'll be able to find your Zoom
Thanks,
link.
Doug.
Perfect. So if you're in Kitsilano A has its own Zoom link, and that's what you'll click on to join your session.
So to reiterate, as long as you know what physical room on site your presentation is going to play in, that should give you your information to find your Zoom link. So what happens once you've clicked the Zoom link? We will be in Zoom here, either myself and or where can you find that list? Lisa, you want to jump in on that?
Yes, we are sending those to presenters 24 hours before the presentation. And the reason why we're waiting to do that is we really want to make sure that the Zoom links aren't being accidentally used Like you don't want to use this 2 days before and test it out and end up in someone's presentation. And so we'll be sending it to you a day in advance. You can always email me too, obviously, and I'll put my email in the chat. So if you're nervous about it, you're like, it's 24 hours before and I don't see my link, just send me a message and I will certainly send it to you. But we will be sending these out to all people who are joining us.
Awesome. So just keep an eye on your email. Let me see. There we go. Thank you, y'all. So yes, just keep an eye on your email. And if you don't receive anything from NARST, 24 hours before, check your junk, check your spam, check a few different things. And then if it's still not there, please reach out to us and we will help. Either Lisa or myself will figure out a way to get you there. So back to on site, we've clicked the Zoom link. So what happens? So let me go back here. Okay, so ideally, we're clicking this link 15 minutes before. Now, the importance of this is that we're using one Zoom room for the most part in each of these physical rooms. So we'll have multiple presentations utilizing the same Zoom room to make fewer links and fewer rooms. Just in general, that one Zoom room can kind of just be for that physical room. Keeping all of that in mind, when you join, it's very important that you keep your microphone off and keep your camera off until either myself or a NARST volunteer interacts with you, because we should have flex time to get everything prepared between presentations. But if one goes over, we don't want people popping up on screen while a presentation is going. So at least when you're joining, just make sure that you're muted out and that your camera is off, and then we will touch base with you to get you set up. On that note, for virtual presenters and then for presenters being there on site, to actually show or share the presentation / PowerPoint, the ideal would be for the virtual presenter to have the presentation with them on their computer that they're joining from, so they can share their screen and run the presentation. That way, in the actual room, what's being shown on the actual projected screen is the shared screen of the presentation and then the virtual presenter, kind of like a side-by-side if you've been in a Zoom with that feature in shared screen before. That's ideal. We can host the PowerPoint on that laptop in the room, but it's difficult to show a virtual presenter and the presentation on that laptop without it going through Zoom, if that makes sense. Does anyone have questions about that? Hi there, Mary. All right, go ahead and unmute, ask away. And yes, Philip, I can repeat that.
My question is this. We are a research interest group. So in our research interest group, in our administrative session, we are going to have a poster presentation where people are going to have to break out into smaller rooms. Is that going to be possible?
I can field that question for you, Mary. Good to see you. Yeah, when
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Hope you're doing well too. I spoke with Jonathan about this very session, and what you are going to run into is, since you need breakout groups, someone from your group will need to create their own Zoom link to use, because this system, how it's set up, there are no breakout rooms.
I'm sorry, you said we're going to have to create our Zoom link. Who is we?
So
Kadasi?
Jonathan said he could create it, or he'll be
Okay.
able to work with someone to create it. So he's on it.
All right, then when we have our Kadasi Steering Committee meeting, Jonathan will explain it to us so it can work flawlessly like it worked when Eileen had her conference. Thank you.
That is the plan. Yeah, so feel free to email me with more questions, Mary. I'd be glad to help you.
Awesome. Okay, and we see that, Steph. Okay, and all right, I'm seeing this come in. Okay, then. So anyone that is concerned about having breakout room functionality in their Zoom presentation, contact Lisa, and we will figure out a way to make that happen.
Just so everybody's clear, the Zoom links that we shared are for the virtual presenters. The attendees are not going to be in Zoom. So if you create breakouts, the only people that you're going to be in your breakouts are your co-presenters. So bear that in mind. The people that are sitting in the ballroom are not going to be participating in your session through Zoom. They're actually watching your presentation on a screen in the ballrooms. So breakouts are not going to work for the people who are attending your session.
Yes, Mary?
Yeah, so that's why we're creating our own separate Zoom link. And then that is where you can do the breakouts because it will be your own people's account.
Well, we really do have a problem now. The Kadasi rigs, all of their events are virtual. We have the administrative session, we have a social event, and we have 2 social events, and we have a business meeting. So as far as we are concerned, everybody is going to have to be able to log in to that Zoom link.
Mary, we're only covering actual concurrent sessions. We're not covering any of those kind of sessions in this call. The only thing we're covering are the concurrent sessions, whether they're symposiums or paper sessions or general sessions. If you're talking about some kind of social or a business meeting or something like that, that is something totally different that we're not covering on this call.
And when will you cover that? Because this is very important.
That's what you're talking to Lisa about.
Yes, ma'am. So
when do I talk to you about? Because I can get out of this meeting.
no problem. So Mary, Jonathan and I have already talked about it, and he's going to share with you the plan, which is he will have the Zoom link so that you guys will have that shared with me. I will be able to post it. Actually, our Playback Now folks have the online area, and they're helping us post other links so that people can join those meetings. So they will be able to join that.
I have one more question. I am a presenter at an administrative session for the elections committee. Should I be involved, listen to this presentation?
Not for an administrative session, Mary. That's a good question.
I will leave you all. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mary. You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Mary, be assured that the Kadasa events will run very well.
We are going to make sure it ran as well as it did at Eileen's conference. Thank you.
Fantastic. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm seeing all of these things in the chat. Oh, sure. We'll get live transcription going here. Okie dokie. There we go. Okay. So let me catch up here. All right, so it seems like we're all kind of on the same page about how Zoom is going to work to host our shared screen presentations. So this is where now our volunteers and or on-site presenters are going to come into play. So I know this whole thing is a little hybrid. We have some presenters there in person. We have presenters being brought in here virtually. We have a mix of those. So let's talk about the live streams first. So those are the general sessions, and myself, and 2 of my other Playback Now staff members are going to be helping to facilitate and run those live stream general sessions. How that actually looks in the room, if I understand this correctly, is we've got a larger space for those rooms. We've got a podium up at the front, and then we've got kind of a tech table at the back. The production Playback Now staff will be running the live stream from the back of the room with our setup, but the presentation laptop and then Zoom laptop will be at the front. That's really where we're going to be leaning on those volunteers and or those presenters that are there in person. We will work together to make sure that the virtual presenter is set up, that their shared screen works, and that any media that's involved in the presentation as well works. And that's a reminder for everybody. If you have video or audio or additional links inside of your presentation, test them before we get on site, because we've only got, I think, 15 minutes a lot of times in between, and we got a bunch of rooms. We're happy to help. We're going to do everything we can to make all this work, but any additional testing you can do beforehand saves all of us time. So speaking about logistics, again, we'll be in the back when the stream actually starts, but to get everything set up, volunteer, Playback Now staff member, and presenter that's there in person will touch base, we'll get everything working. Then we'll have the presenter and or staff member up at the podium. Playback Now staff will run back to the back of the room, make sure that the live stream looks good, and then we'll lock eyes, we'll do a cue, maybe a countdown. We've done that in the past. Maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll cue you, you will cue the virtual presenter, and we'll start smoothly. Does that make sense as far as a start for the general sessions? Awesome. The breakout sessions will run similarly. They are slightly smaller rooms, spaces, physical spaces, and there are more of them. So we will be handling them similarly. I don't think there'll be that much of a difference, aside from that they will not be live streamed, so they won't be visible on the platform while they're happening. But they are happening live because they are our live Zooms. So for a virtual presenter in a breakout room, how the process would work is you would find your physical room on that sheet. Breakout session. Okay. Thank you for filling in and answering these through the chat, everyone. Much appreciated. So you find your physical room on that document that will be shared with you. You click your Zoom link, and then either myself, another Playback Now staff member, and or a NARST volunteer will be on camera, on screen when you join your Zoom meeting. We'll say hello, make sure that we can see you, we can hear you, and that you can share your presentation, that it all looks good. We will double check and make sure that everything coming out of the laptop can be seen and heard by the folks in the actual room. And that is, I won't say a bugbear, but it is something to keep in mind. Audio is often always the more difficult of the two things to achieve. We're prepared for it, but we just got to make sure that you guys can hear them, they can hear you, and vice versa. So that will probably be the big thing we're really trying to test or overcome if there are hurdles. So just keep that in mind. Thank you, Doug. Concurrent sessions.
Yep. One main difference between the concurrent sessions that are not being live streamed, we're not too concerned about the beginning being super clean because we're not broadcasting it to a live audience. So it's just the people in the room that you're going to be talking to. So as soon as you're set up and you're ready to go, we're recording those sessions so you can go ahead and start when all your panelists are ready to go. And then from there, we'll be monitoring the session and making sure that they're rolling okay. But there won't be kind of a set countdown to bring you in because you're not being broadcast to a live audience, a live virtual audience like the 3 live stream rooms that Scott was referring to earlier. So just a little clarification in the difference between the 3 live stream concurrent rooms and all the other session rooms that we're recording.
Yes, very good distinction. So with those non-general session rooms, there's a little more flexibility on start and stop. And we will also be editing and mastering those sessions for on demand. So any, slight chat or chatter before things actually start won't be included. So don't worry about chatting with presenters or attendees or anything before the start. We will clean up your presentation so it's only the relevant content. Okay, let me look through my notes here, but I think we're pretty much on track here. So to get started, yes, we will, once everything is set up in the breakout rooms, we've confirmed the people in the room can hear the presenter, that the presenter can hear the other presenters in the room. We can see your presentation. You can change your slides. Basically, all of these production elements work. And hopefully we start right around on time. You give your presentation, then something I encourage everyone to do. Hopefully we'll be able to help with this. NARST volunteers will be able to help with this, but keep an eye on your time. I would recommend having your phone nearby with a timer. That's what I do, and just to see how long things are going. We're not going to be super hard and fast with cutting you off if we can help it, because if you're in the middle of flow, we want to see that content. But we also don't want to eat into other people's presentation time, so stay aware if possible. That will be a big help. Upon ending, oh, yes, go ahead, Lisa.
And Scott, that's where our presiders are going to come in handy. It may be a little more difficult on live stream. We'll need to rely more on Playback Now to help us make sure we're close on time. But in person, we'll have our regular presiders there to help people stay on track.
Excellent. And just so you know, if for whatever reason, let's say you are a presenter, you're midway through the day, there's another presentation that was already going before yours, you join and it's still going. That's okay. As long as your video is off and your microphone is muted, it should be fine, all things considered. I know I said in that email, ideally we want 15 minutes before, but if there's some wiggle room, that's okay. Just I hammer home on the microphone and the video because we don't want anybody popping up on screen. Let me look through here. I feel like we're getting close to being done here. Okay, and kind of the last thing here, I shared this in the email, but I can share this in here too. This is a little tips and tricks video about getting familiar with how to use Zoom. I know that all of us lived through the year that was 2020. So if you don't know how to use Zoom yet, I'm a little surprised, but you're here, so obviously can use it well enough. Sorry, let me get this actual link here. Apologies. Here we go. Okay. So feel free to look at this link that I posted here if you have any questions about utilizing Zoom and how to present. I think we have just about covered our breakdown. Does anyone have any questions?
I was going to suggest if anybody is uncomfortable sharing their screen and they want to practice here now, that would be a good idea. So you have an idea of how to do that.
Love
instead
it.
of in that 10 or 15 minute window we have between sessions starting in a couple weeks.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, if anyone has any trepidation about that process, we can do it right now if you would like.
Sorry, Scott, would that be productive? I mean, how do you expect that somebody in this room attending the 2022 NARST will be practicing how to share the screen? My suggestion is that let them practice. We still have about 2 weeks to conference. Let them practice outside this room. I think it will not be productive for people who are not used to share their screen to now be doing that now. I think it should be an exercise outside this this session.
That's fine. We do this with a lot of other groups we work with virtually. We actually practice it for people so that we can walk them through it if they don't know how to do it. But if we don't have to do that now, it was just a suggestion. So
Yeah, that's fine. We have 2 weeks.
I'm good
or so
either
to the
way.
event. Yeah, for 2 weeks they can practice outside the session.
Lisa, could you clarify what Maya just said there about the 15 minutes per presentation in the paper sets?
Yeah, they're all standard presentations, just as we have at any conference. So you have your 15 minutes, but you also need to allow for some time for questions. And I know Renee will correct me if it's different than that.
And to further answer another question, yes, all presenters will be mic'd. And by that, I mean virtual presenters will be hopefully using a working mic on the computer they are using to join in Zoom, and the presenters that are there in person will have a microphone, because otherwise the virtual folks won't be able to hear you, and then vice versa. There's got to be something to connect and receive to connect on-site and virtual presenters.
And the audio won't come through in the recordings if there's no microphone either. So we are telling the presenters that are on site to use the microphones at all times. And they can, if people are asking questions in the audience, if they can repeat the questions so that it could be picked up for the recording, and also for the people who are presenting virtually so they can hear them. That would be helpful as well.
Yes, very much so. And we hear all the time, well, I don't need to use a microphone. I can project just fine. We're sure everyone has a fantastic voice, but it's just for the recordings. And so everything is connected on demand. Let's see here, a few more questions coming through.
Mariana has a good question. She's asking, what about the pre-recording videos of our presentations to have as a backup? So for those of you who are Zooming in, experience has taught us that sometimes there can be things that happen with signals and other issues. And so we're encouraging, not requiring, but encouraging you to consider uploading a presentation that you've recorded, and that's easy to do on Zoom. You can pre-record your presentation and upload that in order for us to play it in case your signal is not working. So that way, if you are scheduled in one of the regular paper presentation rooms and the concurrent sessions, if we can't get your feed to work properly, we can call up your recording and then play it in that session. So you would at least have your work being shared.
I am all about that. Better to have something in case of emergency than not. And I know that's extra work, but the best advice I can give is to be knowledgeable about the exact location that you'll be in when you're connecting virtually. And if possible, try to utilize a private internet network as opposed to a network at work or a hotel or a hospital that's actively shared. And if you can get a hardline connection, an Ethernet line, that is best. We understand that we don't all have the same capabilities, but that can help to prevent bandwidth issues. Let's see here. Double check chat. All right. Very good. Very good. Okay.
There's another question about, is it possible to share the video as the presentation, but to be on Zoom for the question and answer part of the session? That's a good question that I think Playback Now folks will have to help us with.
I think if you want us to play your video as opposed to presenting it live, let us know so we know that. Otherwise, we're going to be waiting for you on Zoom and we won't know that we're supposed to be playing a video. So,
right. But what if they come in on Zoom, their signal isn't working well, and we're calling up their video to play?
Okay.
Is
Okay.
there a way to have them remain on Zoom to at least like in a chat, share Q&A?
Yes. So here's the best way I think to do that. And Doug, feel free to comment here as well. If we can get that pre-recording as soon as possible, not even just a link, but the actual file, if we can have all of those before.
No, Scott, they're uploading them to ShareFile right now. We have already received some. So
oh, fantastic.
NARST has already shared a link for people to upload their videos already, and we have some. So those are going to be preloaded on the laptops in the rooms when we get there, so that we can call those up in case we need to play them. But if we need to play one, if I guess I'm not understanding the question. What you're saying is, can you be part of the Q&A even if we have to play your video? And I would say yes. But if you're having a problem presenting, what would change? I guess just sharing your screen. Is that what you're concerned about? Bandwidth and things like that?
Yeah, I think they were worried that it had to be either or, that it was either show the presentation and they can't be part of it, or they're live coming in on Zoom. But can they be still there lurking with their somewhat working signal while the presentation is the recorded presentation is being shared?
Yes, that should be possible. The way that we would handle that is webcam and then sharing screen are the two biggest taxes on bandwidth. So if signal is a bit of an issue, we would probably just try to get their audio at the baseline. And then if we can share our screen on the laptop that is in the room with the presentation, then we would share our screen of that pre-recorded video. We'd play it inside of Zoom. So the folks.
Scott, I don't know if we're going to be doing that, because that's going to suck up bandwidth doing it that way, playing a video. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. They'll be able to hear it at least, but playing a video is going to suck up a lot of bandwidth at the center. And we don't know what the bandwidth is going to look like there with 15 concurrent rooms, plus 3 live streams going at the same time. So
fair point.
I would say they could listen to the video. We won't share the screen, but they'll at least be able to hear it. And then obviously, because of the microphones, they'll be able to hear the questions coming in from the audience and the co-people that are on site, and then go from there.
Okay. And that does make sense, considering what I brought up earlier. We're going to be on a shared network and having lots of things connected. So I can see how that would be a concern.
I know Michael had a question about whether or not, so if you're a virtual presenter who's in a in-person room, not a live stream room, but you're coming in to do your session, is it possible to hear the people before you and the person after you if you're the third presenter?
Yeah, we're sharing the way the room's going to be set up. The audio is going to be fed into the laptop. So as long as people are using the microphones, which we're telling them to do, then yes, you'll be able to hear all the sessions all the presentations before you're actually going on. Because the reality is, somebody in Vancouver will have to give you a cue. Now's your time slot. Go ahead, start presenting. So that is the idea, that the people that are virtual will be able to hear all the presentations taking place, regardless of if they are in person or through Zoom. Because I'm guessing we're going to have a lot of sessions where you're going to have a virtual presenter, turn it over to a live presenter, back to a virtual presenter, etc. So the way the room should be set up is everybody should be hearing those, whether they're virtual or in person.
Super.
And to speak to Betsy's comment there as well, will audio be embedded within a presentation be audible? Yes, it should be. We need to make sure that if we are sharing screen through Zoom, that share your audio is clicked. And that's one thing that you can look at right now. If you click on the share screen button, and then the window pops open for your choices on what you want to share. At the bottom of that window, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a box that says share sound. You can also click optimize for video clip. That's always good, but if that share sound box isn't clicked, then nobody's going to hear anything. So that's important. If you have sound in your presentation, make sure that's clicked. And that will be something that we, as well as the volunteers, will do our best to assist with. Let's see here. Is it suggested for in-person presenters?
Judith, to answer your question, if you're in person, no, you do not need to pre-record your session. This is just for people that are coming in by Zoom. This is a backup in case they can't connect to Zoom or they have bandwidth issues. That's what the pre-recording is for. But if you're in person, you do not need to, you're going to be presenting it live.
Good deal. All right, just catching up on some of these chats here. Oh,
There's
yes.
another quick question about accessing recordings. So just so you know, the concurrent sessions that aren't in the live stream rooms, as you can hear, they're being recorded. The purpose for that is so you can later access those. We will have access to all of those recordings in all of those rooms through July. So it's the most accessible conference that we probably ever had because of that option. So we're really excited to be able to have that, that particular piece.
Peter has his hand up.
Yes, first let me thank Scott, Doug, and Lisa for this session. It's been quite illuminating. The due date for pre-recorded videos of virtual attendees is tomorrow. Can we have a grace period of 1 day, max 2?
Yes, I say yes.
Well, yes. In fact, Peter, that's a great question. Being the good teachers that we are, we built in a small pillow of time for a grace period. So that is absolutely something that you can do. Thank you for asking.
And Arthur, I know your hand's been raised for a little while.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to clarify so as a virtual presider, prior to the conference, I get all the PowerPoints from the presenters and load them on my computer for virtual presentations. Then 24 hours before the session, I'll get a Zoom link that will make me the host of the session. As the host of the session, my presenters, they get the same link that I get? Is it
All the presenters will be using the same link.
Okay,
That's correct.
So I'll have the link as a presider, and they'll have the same link as presenter. I then preside over the session, calling out the presenters, both live and virtual. For the virtual ones, I share their slides, but for the live presenter, they have uploaded theirs with a USB onto the computer in the room.
Yep.
That's a good point to make there. So we can switch from the virtual presider sharing their screen for the virtual presenter's presentation. We can then take that down and share the screen of the laptop that has the on-site presenter's presentation. But I feel like there is a element of smoothness we could add there, if possible, depending on how much interaction each of these presenters have before we start that presentation. If possible, I'd love for the presider to have a master PowerPoint that has all of the presentations connected. Once again, if possible, because if that is possible, then the presider is controlling, navigating, moving forward on all of the presentations, and then we don't have to have that step of bringing it down, putting it back up. Once again, this is possible to do, but
Right.
Trying to think of smoothness. Do you think that would be possible or any
Right.
difficulty in that?
That sounds fine. So what will happen during the presentation, during the session, is I'll make an introduction, I'll call on the first presenter, they'll present, they'll be telling me next slide, I'll be forwarding the slides. Then for the live presenter, I call on them, they're mic'd in the room, but they will also be saying next slide to me, and I'll be presenting that, moving that forward as well.
Yep,
got
you
it.
can do that.
Okay, I think I got it, and my session is away on Wednesday, so I'll be able to watch this for 3 days and see how it works.
Yeah, and Art, those are great questions. One of the things I'm trying to do before our conference begins is to have as many on-site presiders as possible. So if you are tagged as being a presider and you are coming in virtually, we may want to swap you out for someone who's on site just to make it an easier process. So you and I can chat if you want, and we can figure out what we can do to make sure your session flows smoothly.
Okay, except as the presider and also presenter, and you know, I have people coming in from England, I have people coming in, so it got complex with all of a sudden
So,
England people saying they can't come now.
um,
I can't come as well.
I hear.
So we're all over
Yeah.
the place. I think the Stanford people might be there. So the presider is not just calling on people, it's also
Right.
forming bridges between the different talks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd rather not
Okay.
give that up, and I think the England people will freak if they find out I'm not going to be.
So here's my suggestion is that when you find out who is on site from your team, the Stanford person,
Yeah.
why don't we make sure that one of them is available so that they can help to field questions in the
Okay.
room,
Mhm.
and then you should be good to go.
Great.
Okay, great.
All right, to address a couple of questions here in the chat. So let me scroll up here. Okay, we already addressed.
So I have a question that relates to what Arthur said as well, I think. Jim Minstrel, I will be presenting virtually, but there will be a PowerPoint. And if I'm running the PowerPoint, do I have, and I'm sharing my screen, then I have the capabilities of showing my cursor to hit particular items on the screen. Is that correct? And
Yes.
let's see, I guess. And so I'll have essentially two things going on. I'll have the PowerPoint that I guess is on my screen, and I will have the Zoom, which is also on my screen. And in doing a little practicing there, I find that sometimes one or the other of those covers up the controls for the other one. Yeah, any suggestions?
Yes. So one thing to let you know is that if you are sharing the presentation specifically through Zoom and not your screen, just the presentation, all we as the Zoom attendees can see is your slideshow, is your presentation. If you have windows stacked and stacked and stacked on top of that, if all you're showing us is the slideshow, that's all we're seeing. Now, the controls, specifically the share screen controls, should be at the top of your screen that show up kind of as a toolbar at first, but after a few seconds, they will disappear and go away. Now, we as the attendees, once again, should not see those because it would it wouldn't be great if the share screen functionality in Zoom showed the controls to all of the attendees, because we don't need to see them. So that shouldn't be an issue as far as us seeing them, but you utilizing the controls for share screen and for operating your presentation.
Right.
Unless, well, I guess here's a question. Aside from advancing slides, what other elements in your presentation do you need to click? Do you have links or bits of media or videos that you wish to show?
There are data tables that have particular cells within the table that I want to point people to, and the table by itself is busy enough that people are looking all over for for whatever I'm talking about.
Sure.
with respect to what's in the table. So if I can put my cursor on the cell that I'm discussing to help direct their eye to that cell is what I'm concerned about.
I got you. That should be possible. Let me see here. I will see what I can do here as a quick example. So I'm sharing my screen here, but you all can see my cursor floating around here, right?
Yes.
Okay, then that should be exactly how it looks during your presentation. If your cursor is in the middle of your slideshow, and if you can change slides with your cursor kind of down in the bottom left of your screen, there'll be controls to advance. Basically, as long as you can click those things and you see your cursor there, we can see it too.
Okay. So I need to practice that some more. Because right now they're getting in each other's way.
I gotcha. For a potential test, once all of this is done, maybe create a new Zoom meeting for yourself and give it a record. Practice the practice the shared screen and how that looks. Then end the meeting / end the recording. Take a look at it and see how the attendees then would have seen this. Now, something I do want to let folks know, because unless you're in production and doing a lot of recordings in Zoom, you may not know this. The default for recording yourself in Zoom is a cloud recording. What that means is that it is the actual recording itself exists on the cloud, and it's easy to get. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is that there's a visual difference between a self-recorded on the cloud and recorded locally. And the visual difference is, imagine this is my presentation, my webcam here. In a cloud recording, the webcam of the presenter eats up the top right corner of the presentation. It's actually overlaid on top of it. Where if you do a local recording, meaning you're recording the presentation onto your computer, your device, then it will be side by side as opposed to eating up that top right corner. So that's something to keep in mind if you are going to do a self-recording. And once again, you can test this, open up a Zoom meeting, start the record, share your screen, wait a few seconds, stop it, and then take a look at it. If your camera is in the top right corner and it is eating up a part of your presentation, go into your Zoom settings and change your recording to local. If it would be easier, I can pull up the back end of Zoom and show where this is. And I know that not everybody needs to do this, but it has been a stumbling block in the past when presenters have tried to record for themselves.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm glitching.
Copy. Then that's something that I can do. Before I jump into that, do we have any other questions here? Let's look on the chat. Okay, so to speak to MS about the, I guess, extended view is what's going on here. So additional screens, if you are sharing your screen, you can see your cursor on your laptop screen, but not on your connected screen while running a PowerPoint. Okay, if you want to be able to see your cursor, you just got to move it up onto that screen. Depending on how you have your extended desktop set up, you can go into your display settings if you're using a Windows computer. If you're using a Mac, I'm not certain. I'll have to do some research there. If anyone else is more Apple knowledgeable, please step in. But at least for Windows, it's under display settings, and you will see a window that has two screens. They usually label them as 1 and 2, and you'll see where those screens are placed kind of on a digital space. However you have those screens stacked or next to each other is the total of your virtual space. So to try to visually describe this, say you've got screen 1 right here, screen 2 right here, and you put them together, then that is effectively for your cursor one giant screen that you can move, from left to right. But if your screen's on top, then that's one giant screen that you can move up and down. So what you'll need to figure out, MS, is where your secondary screen is in relation to your first one digitally, and then you'll be able to know where to move your cursor onto that extended screen. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, so what were we discussing right before that?
If you're on a Mac, you just can move your displays around by going to the system preferences and then go to displays, which is in the lower left corner of the system preferences screen. Click on displays, and then you can just drag each of those screens. It shows you the 2 screens, and you can drag them around to wherever you want them. I usually, I have my laptop and a monitor, and so I have the laptop, whichever side the laptop is from the monitor, then I put it on that side of the big monitor screen.
Wise, yes.
So
yes.
I think it sounds like it works similar to a PC.
Excellent, thank you, Louisa.
To Windows, excuse me.
We gotcha. Okay, I know we're fielding a lot of things here. Is there anything else withstanding, or any other questions we haven't addressed? I feel like there was one that we were in the middle of and didn't quite get to. Virtual presenters allowed to screen share, or are we required to have the presider share our slides? Okay, you are allowed. The only, I guess, it's small, is bringing down shared screen to accommodate the next presenter. So it's a small thing, having to stop screen sharing for one person and then have the other person bring it up. It's small, but it does break up the flow of the presentation. So like I said, ideally, I'd love it if everything was in one and we only have one person navigating through the entirety of the presentation. But if that's not tenable, then we can adjust. And the process for that would be, let's say we're sharing a screen with an on-site presenter. The presider would say, okay, and now we're going to move on to the next presentation. Give us just a moment while we bring down the screen and bring it up for our next presenter, and just kind of acknowledge the small bit of transferring time there. Then we do that, double check it, get it ready, and launch in. At most, I'm guessing it's a 2 or 3 minute delay, but it's doable. So ideally, yes, Sarah. That does come down to a bandwidth issue a little bit. So if the presentation that is on site, as long as it is only slides for the most part, if it's not other bits of media, because that really is where the bandwidth issue comes in, we should be able to share the screen on that Zoom meeting. So then the virtual presenter can see those slides as well. And then that's the screen that is being projected as well in the room. So
yeah, the plan is for the in-person people to share their screen if there's virtual presenters, so they can see the slides. If we're playing a pre-recorded video, that's what we were discussing earlier, where it would really suck up a lot of bandwidth. But just PowerPoint, the plan is for the presenters to share their screen for the virtual presenters to see as well.
Awesome.
And just to piggyback off of that, because that's a very good point. So for the people who are presenting virtually, the presiders on site do not need to upload anything for them. It's really the people who are in the room. So if you have 3 people presenting on site, we need to upload those presentations onto the computer so they're ready to go. And then our person who's zooming in, they'll just share their presentation. They don't need to upload anything with you.
And with that setup in mind, what we would do is just, go through all three of the on-site presenters, if that's the order. And then once they're done, just take the shared screen down, transfer over, and then the virtual presenter will bring their presentation up on shared screen and move forward. All right, I feel like we're trying to get to all of these here in the chat, but are there any other outstanding questions or things that we feel we haven't addressed? All right, I'm hearing some crickets, but I'm seeing some things posted. Let's see. Okay, and I guess a quick question, could we differentiate between the types of sessions that we're talking about? Because I see we're chatting about roundtables here.
Yeah, roundtables will function similarly to the concurrent sessions. What we've done is we put each roundtable into their own room. So you will have in-person people there, and then you will probably also have one person zooming in. So we'll treat it like a concurrent paper session in a way, but the person zooming in may need some assistance in terms of questions being shared with them after their presentation.
All right, and can we confirm that deadline that MS posted there? Yeah, that's definitely fine. If you can upload things by Monday, that should give us enough time. I'm saying us, that's like Doug and his team are doing the organization of all of these uploads. So we do appreciate you getting them up there as soon as possible, because they do need time to sort through all of those files. So thank you. Awesome. Okay. I feel like we've covered a lot, but I think we've got a basic rundown of how this whole process is going to work. If there are any further questions at all, feel free to reach out to myself, to Doug, to Lisa. We will try to make things clear if anything is muddy, but otherwise, we really appreciate you guys being here and going through all of this with us. If this makes the process easier on site, then it was well worth the time. Any other last questions or comments before we wrap up?
We recorded this as well, so we can post this recording and send Lisa the link so that she can give this to people if they want to rewatch this, or to people who couldn't attend.
Okay, Lisa.
Thanks everybody for being here.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Upon wrapping this up, I will produce this recording, so anybody who missed it or wants to review can check this out. But hey, thanks again, everybody. We're looking forward to seeing you here soon. And otherwise, we'll see you in Canada.